Hello and welcome back to episode 10 of the Pickle Jar Podcast. So pull up a seat, take a bite, and get ready to dive into that brine for episode 10 of the Pickle Jar Podcast. I'm Rowling Sullivan.
I'm Keaton Ashby.
And this is our very special guest for this week, Vice Chair of the Marco Island City Council, Jared Grifoni.
Thanks, guys.
Well,
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
yes.
So, Jared, this is your second term that we would come up here after the election. So, I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us your elevator pitch, as one would say.
Sure. Well, I ran for office in 2016 as a first-time candidate. Had never run for office before. Always had an interest in politics and local community work. But at that point, I said, you know what? It's great to try to help other candidates win and to work in other groups and to do that. But, let's give it a shot here on Marco Island because I think I can really help the community and make a difference. So when I ran in 2016, what was very important to me was to make sure that my word, I followed through on it.
Right.
Which is something that is very rare in politics today.
Oh, of course.
So, you don't want to overpromise and you don't want to underdeliver, but you want to be truthful, you want to be accurate.
Right.
So I made a number of pledges to the citizens of Marco Island in that campaign. First off was keep more money in our citizens' pockets,
right.
Keep our taxes down, protect property rights, make our council meetings more accessible to the public, build better relationships with the county and state elected leaders. Because in the past we had city councilors and council that just failed to really look beyond the Jolly Bridge.
That is true.
It is.
And the fact of the matter is there's so much going on either in Collier County, at the Collier School District in Tallahassee that directly impacts Marco Island citizens. So if we're not paying attention to it, we're missing out on opportunities and potentially ending up getting hit with something that we don't really want. We could have avoided it if we were paying attention. So those were just a few of the promises that I made. And over the last 4 years, I've successfully delivered on those promises. It wasn't easy. It takes a lot of work and a lot of dedication to get it done. But that's something that I'm very proud of my record. So I decided, let's run again. On Marco Island, we have term limits. So
It's 2 terms, right?
Correct. 2 terms, 4 years each, so or a maximum of 8 years in office for Marco Island City Council. So what I want to do now is I'm running not as someone who's promising things of what saying, hey, these all sound good, I'm going to try to get them done. I'm running again because I've gotten them done and I want to continue to do that type of good work. So I have a record of success as a proven and successful advocate for lower taxes, for fiscal accountability, for protection of our island wildlife and environment, and we can get into those specifics as we go, but also to protect our citizens' individual and property rights, and to make sure that the money that does come in, because the city doesn't make any money. We don't.
Right.
We don't have a business. Marco Island isn't a business. Every single dollar that comes in is coming out of someone else's pocket, if it's a citizen or a business through taxes. So we need to make sure that when that money does come in, that we're meeting the priorities and the needs of our citizens first, rather than luxury items or something that maybe sounds good to city council or to the city staff. We need
but
to
not
make
to
sure
the citizens.
We got to make sure that we deal with those priorities first.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That was a very good elevator pitch.
Yeah.
Did you practice that?
No, I swear I did not.
Right. So I want to backpedal just a little bit.
Sure.
You said that this is actually, back in 2016, you said that was the first time you ever ran for office?
Correct.
So being it's kind of a dirty word, but first-time politician, what made you decide that you wanted to get into politics in the first place? Because if I am correct, Keaton, you said that at Merrimack College you studied political science?
Correct. Yeah. I've in 2016 was when I decided I'm going to actually run for something. I'm going to run for public office. But prior to that, really almost my entire life, I've always had just a natural interest in the political process, in government, in history, in law. So all of those things, you combine them together, and what comes out of it, you get someone who wants to run for office at some point, because just the interest in those topics. And but really from the time I was a kid, I loved watching politics on TV. I loved sitting down with my parents and grandparents and family when they were talking politics over the dinner table or the holiday table, and just listening. And then eventually, as I got more older and more, I guess, comfortable in being able to speak up and speak by piece, I started doing that, and then from there, it just kind of was a natural progression. I did study political science, majored in political science, double majored in philosophy in college, and then I went to law school and got my Juris Doctor.
Right. All right, there we go. That's quite the resume right there.
And actually, I did run. I did run for class rep in high school. So
okay,
if we want to count that,
starting young as a politician.
Now you just said that you ran. Does that mean that you did not?
I won. I ran.
You did. Okay.
All right.
All right, just checking because
that could have just killed the whole campaign. Right there.
Just well, speaking of the campaign, you said main reason that you think that Marco Island voters should vote you in for your next term is because you've proven over the past 4 years about what you've gotten done, and you're going to continue to do those things. Is there anything specific that you're looking forward at the future with?
Well, it's really interesting because when you look at the Marco Island City Council, for example, and you not just today, but you go back 5, 10, 20 years, back to the city's founding in the late 90s, 1990, 1998. So you look at the councils and what they've done and who's been part of those councils, and for me, I think I bring somewhat of a unique perspective.
Right.
We've had a couple younger councilors before in our.
Are you the youngest city councilor?
When I ran in 2016, and I was 33 when I was elected, and I think I was the youngest who had ever been elected at that time. But I think we had a couple other councilors. One in particular I'm thinking of right now, who I think was roughly the same age, in his 30s when he served, late 30s. I think having that 4 years of additional experience obviously goes a long way,
right?
Because that's one thing that's really important. When you get on there, you can talk all campaign about what you want to do and how you intend to accomplish it, but the reality is you're just one person out of 7. And if you can't get 4 or 5 counselors who agree with you, depending on the issue, you can be the most talkative or inspirational or have the best ideas, but if you can't get people to buy into it and want to support it and be part of it, then you're not going to accomplish much at the end of the day. And that's one thing that I think is really unique about what I've been able to do on City Council. I've brought white papers on a variety of issues up.
Right.
And we've talked about many, many issues over the last 4 years. But I feel like I've been, and I think the facts and the record will show it, that I've had a lot of success in taking an idea and getting it to the finish line.
Running with it.
And that's what's really important is, getting it to the finish line and accomplishing something that'll help Marco Island, help the citizens of Marco Island. So, that to me has been, really important for me. Just to feel like, hey, we've been able to accomplish something as a community, as a council, because again, it's not one person. You can't do it all yourself. You've got to get people on. And so if you can get that cooperative effort together to do the right thing, then at the end of the day, it's a huge jump forward for the city.
Right. Which is actually being able to follow through on campaign promises is not something you see a lot with politicians.
Right. Well, because you know what? Everybody has some good ideas. If they're running for office, that they're passionate about something, either themselves individually or groups that they're affiliated with, and they want to bring an issue to the forefront, and that's great. That's what's excellent about our system of government is that people have that opportunity to do it. But I'll tell you, there's a huge difference between just talking about it and getting it done.
Right.
And that was over 4 years. It has been a really interesting experience, and what's kind of unique about this election is we've got 5 candidates for 4 seats. I'm the only incumbent running for re-election.
Right.
Plus, just this past Monday, Councilor Victor Rios announced that he's resigning effective at the end of October.
Really?
Correct.
So there's another space.
So there's actually 5 seats on the council that'll be open, within a matter of a week or two, and then on top of that, if we remember just a month or 2 ago, Councilor Sam Young resigned over the summer, and we appointed Councilor Greg Foley to fulfill a portion of his term. He ran unopposed in November, this November, so he won by default for the 2 years.
Right.
So really, you have potentially 5 or 6 brand new counselors who have less than 2 or 3 months experience. So you really need someone on that council who has the experience of serving for 4+ years. Now, Councilor Eric Brecknitz, who's the chairman right now, he's got a lot of experience. He served as mayor in his hometown, in Illinois, in Decatur. He's been a very good and effective counselor and chairman, but he's going to need some help. When you've got 7 people trying to get things done,
who all have their own ideas,
and their own time frames on when they want to do it. You've got to be able to help them through that process and to bring people in, because when I ran in 2016, it was similar but not exact. I mean, we had 3 new counselors and 1 incumbent who was reelected in 2016, but you still had a changeover in what ultimately constituted at the time the majority of the council. So you had even though you had a returning counselor, it was a new direction for council, and that still took a little bit of getting used to for everybody. So that's what's really interesting this time around, is that Marco Islanders can expect, no matter what, they're going to have a brand new council, one way or the other. If you've got Chairman Brecknitz who will be on there, if I'm reelected, you're still going to have 5 new faces, and that makes that'll be a very interesting scenario for the city of Marco Island. So I think we've got some good people running, and I think it's going to be ultimately a good thing, but we just have to get there.
Right. Yeah, I thought that there were only 3 seats open. I did not know that there was that many that were up. But either way, we've talked a lot about the grand scheme of things. I know we've got some questions here about some of the specifics. I'm going to hand it over to Keaton for a second, if you want to go ahead.
I would like to talk about, we all know what we're going through right now, like COVID and stuff. And I'd like to say, how do you feel about like enforcing mask policies and stuff and all that going around?
Yeah, again, it's one thing that experience in an elected position, in a leadership position, can make so much difference in this conversation. Because honestly, anybody who was running for office 4 years ago, 2 years ago, even running 8 months ago, who thought that they were getting in, nobody thought we were going to be in this situation that we're in right now. That we were going to be dealing with something like COVID-19. And even people who've been in government for 25, 50 years have not necessarily fully prepared, at least for the specifics of what we're dealing with. So that's been I think a very, very interesting learning experience for so many. So over the last since February, March, I've been just immersing myself deeply in the COVID-19, the background, the medical information, the recommendations from the CDC and Florida Department of Health, paying close attention to what's coming out of Governor DeSantis' office and from the President of the United States and everybody on down, and from the medical community as well. So one thing that I kind of took on my own, took the lead on, was reaching out to the citizens of Marco Island about what was going on, because everybody was frightened. I mean, people were, it was such a unique situation that you had to try to get the facts out there. What you don't want to do in situations like that is react in a panic way, knee-jerk fashion, because we've seen what happens in those situations. It's generally not very good. No. So what I tried to do was I actually was posting just numerous updates through my social media multiple times a day, for months, sharing information, trying to get the facts out, trying to keep people calm, and just be a positive, community-oriented leader. I had held daily conference calls with citizens. People could just call in, listen, ask questions, find out, how many new positives today? What's the positive percentage? Talk about all that and what was going on in government, because in March, end of March and early April, every 24 hours it seemed like we were getting
something new
directives from either the federal government, the state government, or local, and we had to react. And people were like, "Well, hey, yesterday we were at 50% capacity in a restaurant. Now all of a sudden it's at this," so it's just very confusing. Now on the issue of masks, right now we're in a unique situation. The governor just announced that we were going to be moving into phase 3.
Yeah.
So we're in phase 3 now in the state of Florida. Part of his announcements were that local mask ordinances that were fining individuals who are not wearing masks basically are null and void. You can't go and fine people anymore. You can't collect those fines. And people who already had been assessed, that those were basically wiped out. So, in a question like that, you have to ask yourself, number one, is it constitutional? Number two, is it legal? Number three, how do you enforce it? If you meet the first two criteria, how do you enforce it? Do you have the manpower to enforce something like that?
For sure.
And that's what's really, I think a lot of people kind of aren't aware of, or they're not fully focused on that. Like, hey, you can pass mandates all day long, but at the end of the day, if you don't have the ability to enforce them and enforce them in a
you can't do anything about it.
You can't do anything about it. So that's an issue. And then I've been closely following all the statistics for just a number of communities around to look, well, where does Marco Island fit in this situation? And if you look at, say, Key West, you look at even Collier County generally, on a per capita basis, per 15,000 residents, Marco Island's case rate and total raw cases has essentially been pretty flat.
Yeah, it's fairly stagnant. There's not much of a curve to flatten when it comes to Marco itself.
I mean, we had, like everybody in Southwest Florida, the state of Florida, and the country, an uptick in cases in like July and August.
Of course,
right? And that
everywhere it did.
Everywhere. But if you look at the pattern, I mean, we're relatively flat.
Yeah.
And you look at some like Key West, for example, which I kind of have been following them really closely because they're an island community.
Yeah.
They've got a tourist element. And they took a different path than Marco Island did. They were part of Monroe County, who shut down US 1. So you had nobody coming from the Keys who was not a resident.
Yeah.
I see.
They shut down rentals there. So you had to be a resident of Monroe County to get to Monroe County. They instituted an indoor mask mandate. And then they followed that up with an outdoor mask mandate.
Wow.
Yeah.
So a much different approach than Marco Island and Collier County for the most part, but specifically Marco Island. And their case numbers are, radically different if you look at the chart than Marco Island. And so you have to ask yourself, well, what's the reason for that? Is it, and coincidentally, it seems like their numbers really shot up after they put in, especially the outdoor mask mandate, which was kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
So you have to ask yourself, well, why is Marco Island having a relatively low case count? People are responsible. People are listening to the advice of health officials, to the advice of others in the community. They're being smart. If they don't want to wear a mask, they're going to places where they don't have to wear a mask.
Right.
If they want to wear a mask, they're going to places where masks are required by private entities, which is part of freedom. Is that an entity, a business, for example, can say, hey, look, I'm requiring masks inside this business. You can choose to come here and spend your money or not.
Right.
The business next door says, hey, I'm not requiring masks. Come here and spend your money. And eventually, that finds an equilibrium. Right. Because we all believe in the free market. The free market has a lot of does some great things. One of them is it allows choice, and it allows for the best choice ultimately to rise and fall on its own merits.
That's true. Which when you're saying all this stuff about Key West, about their policies and about enforcing, to cite an example, I was actually in Tampa yesterday and this morning, which is why we're recording a little bit later in the day. We went to Busch Gardens for Hollow Scream. They have mandatory masks in the park, but of course they can have people walking around, security officers saying it's like, hey, it's got to be over your nose. But people still won't follow it. If people don't want to follow it, they're not going to, which I think that's a fairly good observation, saying maybe the reason why we're doing so well here is because people are just responsible.
Yeah, being smart about it.
Yeah, well, and you know what? They respect others. Like, for example, if someone asks you, hey, Ryan or Keaton, when you come over, can you wear a mask?
Yeah,
you're probably gonna wear a mask, right? I mean, you have that respect for someone who's making that request, and it's in a private situation or whatever where you can you obviously want to show that person that level of respect. And then there's and hey, if you want to avoid wearing a mask, there's plenty of ways to avoid wearing masks. But regardless of all that, at the end of the day, we've got I want to say right now, approximately as a total, 216 confirmed positives for Marco Island. So that's going all the way back to day one.
Yeah, and that's not including that's including the people who have already recovered as well.
That is every confirmed positive that
Right.
Marco that has a 34145 zip code since the beginning of the calculations, which was probably I think we got our first case.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
We have a population of what, 17,000 approximately.
Yeah, we're about
Around there.
17,500 full-time folks, and then you've got those who are part-time who still may have 34145 as their primary zip code. They just may not be living here, 8 months.
So does that mean that
They count?
there are some cases who may be living abroad, or not abroad, but
like other places.
Their
Up
main
north.
their main zip code says that they live here. They might be living in New York part time.
Yeah, well, there are they do keep track of that. So you've got if you look at the Florida dashboard, for example, they'll have call your cases currently out of state. Or they'll have non-county resident positive. So if someone was say someone was visiting here on vacation for a weekend, and they happened to just feel sick when they got here, and they went and got a test, and before they went home, the test showed that they were positive. That would still be reflected in the county numbers as a non-resident. So you still will see that. It's not like that number just doesn't exist and we don't really know. No, that number is there. But overall, for Marco Island, the numbers have been very, very, good. I mean, look, you want to get, if we had 0, that would be the best.
Oh, yeah.
The reality is we're not going to be at 0. We're never going to be at 0 again. But how do you keep that curve flat? And what about the hospitalizations? So you look at NCH, their hospitalizations for COVID positive patients, not necessarily those who are in the hospital because of COVID symptoms,
but just happen to go to the hospital.
They broke their leg, they went in there, they got a test, and it came up positive. For example, they would be considered a COVID positive patient receiving, within the hospital. Their numbers, as of just this past week, I mean, they were at in the upper teens to low 20s for number of patients, and that was akin to like April, mid to late April. So we're back. We're definitely back down. The numbers did go up there for the hospitalizations in the summer. We saw that pretty much everywhere. But on Marco, we've been pretty good. I think people feel safe on Marco. We need to continue to be vigilant. It's not an excuse to just go out and forget about taking reasonable precautions. But we're very lucky to be on Marco, and I think our citizens just have exercised personal responsibility, and I trust them to continue to do that.
Yeah,
that's good.
And I think about in times like these, it's very important as a person and living in your community to looking to the city council and stuff and the people in charge to find out all the information and stuff about this. So I think that's good.
Yeah, I mean, you want to be open and transparent about it, because if you're not, then things can spiral out of control. I remember when that first positive case showed up from Marco Island.
I remember.
Everybody was just
and I remember when I first saw it on the on the dashboard or in the reports that were coming out, and I think probably the first thing I did, almost immediately called the city manager and said, we've got to get this information out there.
Yeah.
Because you don't. I mean, hey,
you don't want to cover it up. You don't. You don't want to look like China out here.
You can't, right? Exactly. I mean, you see what happens when people, governments try to bury those things, and it spirals out
North
of control.
Korea.
Right. I mean, so when that first case came in, it was let's get the information out to the citizens. Let's let them know, because now they've got to be even more cautious of what they're going. And again, back then, I mean, we didn't. And by we, I'm talking about
everyone as a people
didn't really know. I mean, what we were dealing with. How serious is this? What's the real mortality rate? How does this affect people?
Is it actually airborne or not?
Is it airborne or not?
Jury's still out.
How is it going to? I mean, why do we have no toilet paper all of a sudden?
Yeah.
I mean, right? So now we're in a much different situation. I think people have really taken responsibility. They're really and the medical science has continued to educate us as to who's at risk, what is the most at-risk situation, and what can you best do to be safe and avoid that. But at the same time, you can't just lock yourself up. You know,
Right.
You've got,
Yeah.
we're going to be living with this for a while, and people need to do things that they enjoy and get out there and enjoy life, but just be smart. And Marco Islanders have done that.
All right. Well, I think we have covered COVID quite a bit. I think we're good with that. So let's see. Keaton, we got some more questions over there?
I'm thinking we should move more into local stuff. It's there's a city ordinance that prohibits parking in like the swale for like between sidewalks and stuff and all
6
that.
a.m.
Yeah, 2 a.m. and 6 a.m.
Right.
And do you know why this is, and do you think this is an appropriate law to enforce?
Yeah. Well, let me give you the reason why, and then we can talk about whether or not it's appropriate. The reason for it is there was concern in the community, and this ordinance goes back some years.
Right. Before your time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well,
I remember.
Basically, people didn't want some random car parking in front of their house 24 hours a day.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So having that, whether it was a 4-hour window or a 1-hour window or 6-hour window, where someone's got to get out to the car that's parked there, if it's there, they've got to move it someplace and then come back later if they wanted to. But it would prevent someone from just basically leaving their car there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Okay.
Because what's really interesting, in a kind of bizarre way, is that the swale in front of your property
Is
you
not
own
owned
it.
by you.
It's owned by the city of Marco Island.
But it has to be maintained.
It has to be
by the property owner.
by the property owner, the adjacent property owner. Same
That's
thing
fun.
Same thing with the sidewalks. The city owns the sidewalk, but you as the individual property owner that's adjacent to that sidewalk are responsible for maintaining it, repairing it, etc. Which is one thing that I want to try to get changed. I've been trying to get it changed for the last year plus. But that's the reason for the swale parking issue, just to kind of keep that so people just don't leave their cars there all the time.
Now that makes sense. But then
Over the sidewalk.
I think over the sidewalk that you shouldn't be able to park over the sidewalk because you're going to get in pedestrians' way.
Okay, yes. But if you have the swale ordinance and you have the sidewalk and you have like a small driveway, but you have 3 cars, where is it going to go?
Yeah.
No, it's a really good point, and especially for those who have who are here with
Multiple drivers.
multiple drivers, families,
you have, like, kids.
older, teenagers, 16 plus teenagers, or you've got family coming in for the holidays, or you've got kids who are coming back from college and they've got their cars.
Now, sorry to interrupt, but isn't there like a moratorium or something on that during the holiday season?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So my question is, you said that people don't want other people parking in the swale. So someone who's not the adjacent property owner of the swale parking there. What is the reason for not having the adjacent property owner being able to park there? Is it just a cosmetic thing, a safety thing?
Well, as you mentioned, Ryan, we do have a moratorium on those, on the over the sidewalk, on the swale parking, from November 15th to January 15th. So it covers, Thanksgiving, the December holidays, Christmas, New Year's, etc. And those are usually the busier months for people like coming back from college, etc. Family coming to visit. And that was something that we passed just in the last 4 years.
I saw.
Because that was just a major issue. You've got people getting a citation when they're visiting, for Christmas dinner. I mean, it's not the best message to send. You want people to be able to get together with their families and have a good time. So that was something that I think was really smart. But the main reason why you don't want people just parking in the swales constantly, the real purpose of the swale isn't to have a nice piece of grass on the other side of your sidewalk. It's for water filtration. To have the water filter down, into the underneath the surface as a environmental protection.
Okay.
So if you have cars continually parking on those types of areas, you're going to get compaction, and then you're not going to have the water drain as quickly, and then the water will go into eventually either the stormwater, the city's sewer system, or maybe work its way towards a canal. So you want to have it kind of filtered down as much as possible.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
That should be available because I read the ordinance and there's nothing mentioned in there about that. So I never knew the reason. I guess that makes sense. So okay, that's a very good reason for it. So since there's the moratorium on it during the holidays, do you think maybe it would be a good idea if somebody could go and get an excuse on it if they have family coming in town, like maybe apply for parking in the swale overnight permit or something like that?
Yeah, you know, we've got a number of permits like that where if someone wants to do a garage sale, you've got to go get a permit. You can get, I think one or two, we're actually thinking of changing that to 2 garage sale permits per year, and also people just don't continually have them every single weekend.
Yeah.
They do have the option to get a couple. So it's something to you could look at is would there be an option for someone who said, hey, I've got a graduation party or I've got family coming into town, can we get a 24-hour permit or a 48-hour permit for something like that? It's certainly something to look at. I mean, one thing we always need to be cognizant of as elected officials is number one, you're always not going to have the right answer.
Right.
And number two, when you think you have the right answer, you may for a short period of time, but circumstances
until something changes,
and you need to be able to adapt and continue. Look, you can't just say, "Hey, we've had this ordinance on the books for 6 years, so it's the gold standard, and we can't touch it." If there's an issue, we've got to step up and try to address it.
Right. Which, by the way, this is being recorded as of October 11th. So just putting that out there because things do change.
Right.
So.
Right. It's true.
All right. Let's see. That's a very good explanation. I had no idea that was the case before. So I'm glad I know that now because that's been a question of mine for a good year since my sister's boyfriend got a $90 citation for.
Well, and one thing too is you kind of hope that if someone's just doing it's a first time offense, a warning kind of makes sense in those situations.
Which I got a warning the other week because I forgot to bring it in.
Yeah. But at the same time, you want to have uniform and consistent enforcement.
Right.
So you don't want this. Hey, I know this guy's house, or I know you've got to enforce the code, but you like to see kind of some common sense into there. Because the language is, it's black and white. When you're writing an ordinance, it's black and white, and someone's got to enforce that. But you hope that there's some discretion in there at times because you don't want to see someone get a ticket. Like I actually, someone had reached out to me maybe about a month ago, a few weeks ago. They received a citation for parking over the sidewalk. Right. It was $95 or whatever it was. And you think, okay, well, hey, you did park over the sidewalk, right? People, kids, if they're walking to school or whatever, they have to get out into the street, or someone who even like someone who's handicapped or whatever, if they're on a wheelchair,
right?
I mean,
which
you need
that
to have
was
that
a big
space
issue
available.
a few months ago.
Right. So, but in this situation, it was a dead end street. So you're in an area not near a school, right? So you're not going to have that type of pedestrian traffic. But what was even more interesting about it is that, at the end of this individual's lot,
the sidewalk ends.
Was an empty lot with no sidewalk.
Right.
Yeah.
So
there's
what were you really blocking?
Yeah.
So and obviously that citizen was frustrated and reasonably so. But that's what happens when you've got black and white ordinances. You want to try to have some level of interpretation there, and situations like that where it just this doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Right.
But you still have to. You're always going to come upon those situations, and you have to try to address them as best
That's
you can.
true.
Yeah.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about another local issue that has actually been a hot topic in this election cycle. You can choose to answer this however you'd like, but it seemed that there's been a uptick in short-term rentals. And when I say short-term rentals, I mean under 30 days.
Right.
Yeah.
For example, right next to my house is a rental property that every week there's a new family in there with, I think multiple families.
Yeah.
Which has caused a lot of noise and some fear from some citizens about maybe the spreading of COVID, but looking for the future as well. What do you think about short-term rentals and about what some in the community have been saying about complaining about them, or saying it's like we need to keep these for maybe some realtors' side? It's like this is a good source of income for the economy. What are your views on the short-term rentals in general?
Yeah, well, what's really interesting is, it's been a really interesting conversation,
right,
to hear from, because there's been citizens on
both sides.
If there's a side to it, there's a citizen who's advocating for it one way or the other. And the short-term rental issue is multifaceted. It's not just one side or the other.
Right.
There's 20 different positions that you can have on it, and that's why it's important to just try to be consistent and to be honest with the citizens. And that's why, for one, the main thing is, I've heard a lot of people say we just need to get rid of them, ban short-term rentals, of under 30 days, or whatever the time.
I've heard that said a lot too.
Here's the thing: the city has no control over that.
Right.
The state of Florida has actually taken that authority from local governments. So they preempted city governments, is what it's called. So they've taken that authority themselves. So us as a city government cannot pass any legislation that would regulate short-term rentals on the basis of either duration or frequency. So we can't say anything under 30 days. We don't want anything under a week, or you've got to have a 2-week minimum. We can't, not allowed in the state of Florida. So that takes that part of it off the table.
Right.
For the local government.
I did not know that.
But see, that's something where citizens need to be aware of that,
right?
So that if they're passionate about some type of regulation in that way, then it's not necessarily it's not necessarily your city councilors who are going to be able to get that done, because we can't pass an ordinance to get that done.
Right.
But your state representatives are people who do have that decision-making authority. Bob Rommel, who's running for re-election, he's our Florida House rep. Senator Kathleen Pasadomo, she's our state Senate rep. And just any others even within Southwest Florida who may be someone that you can talk to who might be able to advance that position. Whether it's the right one or the wrong one is a discussion that would need to be had by the the people in Tallahassee.
Okay.
So, but what can the city council do? Doesn't mean that we can't do anything simply because we can't regulate short-term rentals on the basis of duration or frequency. We've got noise ordinances, we've got occupancy that we could look at. We've got trash ordinances, we've got parking ordinances. So the thing is, are people opposed to a short-term rental, or are they opposed to the noise, the trash, the occupancy, the parking?
Is usually what it is.
So what can we do? We can look at those problems, because that's really what the city hears most often. If someone's talking about a short-term rental, if they're concerned about a short-term rental, the noise, the parking, the trash, the occupancy, and they're all interrelated in one way. I mean, if you've got 50 people in a house, it's going to be loud, even if they're not being loud individually. 50 people talking at the same time or whatever, that's going to be loud. If the parking, if you've got 6 cars in the driveway because you've got 15 people in there and they all came in a car each or whatever, you're going to have parking problems.
Of course.
So you can kind of go along the line, down the line like that. But we just passed a new noise ordinance, which our old ordinance was passed in 2015. It was before my time on city council, and at the time it was sold to the community as that this was going to solve the noise problems. Clearly, it did not, and that's unfortunate. I mean, that's not a good thing. I mean, it's just, but hey, that's how it's actually worked out over time. That's why, again, like we were talking about earlier, you need to be able to adapt and to continue to look at ordinances that may not have the right effect that you want. So the old ordinance, basically, it was 24 hours a day, which a lot of people didn't know. 24 hours a day noise ordinance, but it was very subjective. So, you're home and you hear a noise, it bothers you. You call code enforcement. They come out and the officer's listening for it, and maybe it doesn't hit his ear the same way it hits yours. I mean, we all hear things differently. That's the issue with subjective, or we might be neighbors. There might be someone in between us who's making noise. It may not bother me or it may not bother you, but it may bother the other neighbor. So that's the thing. Noise is very subjective. different pitches, different tones, different duration. It's going to interact with someone's ear and bother them or not bother them.
Yeah.
So what we did with the new ordinance is it's still 24 hours a day, but we added a decibel meter calculation in there.
Okay.
So whether it's kids jumping in the pool, someone blasting music, or a dog barking constantly, if it registers at a certain value on the decibel meter, it's a violation. So we may love dogs. Dog barking may not bother either of us, but if it's at a certain level, that would be a violation under the ordinance. So there's at least some objective measurement to say, you know what, this truly is.
Yeah, there's actually a way to say
Right.
if this is a violation or not, because
Right.
as you
So,
said,
but
anyone can hear
we
something
still
different.
do have the subjective standard in there too. Is that if it's, we call it plainly audible over a certain distance. So there's it's a mixture of both, which I think is a good way to look at it for now. But we're already talking about, hey, in 6 months we need to evaluate where we're at. Is it working? Is it not?
Yeah.
What can we change? And that's a good thing. So, like for example, with noise, over the last really 3 years, I've been looking at the data that's been presented to the city council. We've had, I want to say, roughly 350 to say 400 complaints a year, noise complaints a year, and roughly about 200 plus citations issued per year. So and that's been pretty consistent over a 3-year period. And those are
Right.
round numbers, but
Yeah.
that's close enough for the sake of argument. This year, the number of complaints went to 700 complaints in a
Wow.
year, right? So over basically doubled. But the number of citations remained roughly the same, about 200. So you had more complaints, same number of citations. So there was some disconnect between what the noise ordinance should be doing or what people think it should be doing, and how is it actually being enforced. You know?
Right.
So that was, and COVID and more people being down here, more people coming from other areas that maybe trying to escape some of the draconian policies in other communities.
Right.
That all played a role for sure. But what was really interesting was when the Chief Rosano presented some of the noise call data along with Captain Bear. They had a chart of when I asked, I said, you know what, let's bring in a chart that shows the number of calls, the type of noise that's being complained about, and the time of day. So they showed the chart, and what we have on Marco Island is a music after 9 p.m. problem.
Yeah.
That's where the overwhelming majority of noise complaints was music at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and later, which makes sense. I mean, if you're trying to wind down from your day, or have a conversation with someone in your house, or if you're going to bed early, and you hear boom, 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 whatever, that's going to be obnoxious, and you're going to call in a complaint. So,
as some anecdotal evidence to that, anytime we've ever called on the short-term rental next door, it's been music after 10 p.m. actually, because that's basically our own rule, like to be subjective about it for ourselves. If it's before 10 o'clock, then we're not going to call because it might be annoying, but we don't care enough. But if we're trying to sleep, then that's when it becomes an issue.
Yeah. So that
Makes
data was so important to just visualize that, hey, maybe we shouldn't be looking at trying to strengthen the noise ordinance at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
We don't need, that's not where even if we were thinking that might be an issue, that's not where people were complaining.
Yeah.
People were not concerned about noise level generally. And during the day, it was 9 p.m. and after, and it was almost exclusively music. I mean, you had some other issues, of course, but it was predominantly loud music after 9, and so with a focus on that, we can look there. But then the noise ordinance is just one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
We've got to look at what we can do with occupancy. What state regulations come into play. Parking you can look at. So there's a number of other things that it'll ultimately be the new council, on November 9th, after their first meeting after the election. Hopefully, I'll be on there, and confidently, I believe I will. But that's one thing that we're going to have to continue to look at.
All right. Well, we are now just about 45 minutes in, so we're going to go to a quick break, and we'll see you in a few minutes. You'll see us in a few seconds. And we're back with Vice Chair of the Marco Island City Council, Jared Grifoni. Welcome back, everybody. So we wanted to move into a little bit more of the man behind the City Council, because we've talked a lot about policy and politics, which, I mean, generally we've stayed away from most federal politics on the podcast, like overall, and thankfully we've stayed somewhat away from that and stayed more local. But we want to know a little bit more about you as a person. So you said from a very young age you were always interested in politics in the first few minutes of the recording. If you weren't doing this right now, if you weren't involved in politics whatsoever, what do you think you would be doing now?
Well, you know, it's a good question. And to be totally honest with you, what's really unique about running and serving in a local office is it's not your only job.
It's not a full-time gig.
Well, you know what? It's a lot more full-time than you would think. But it certainly doesn't pay the bills.
Right.
For Marco Island City Councilors, you know, we get $6,000 a year.
Which
a year.
Yeah.
I'm gonna emphasize that. The chair gets the big bucks. He gets $9,000 a year.
Oh,
so,
wow. That's a large step.
When you get involved in local politics, especially on Marco Island, you're doing it because you want to serve.
You're a public servant. It's not a money maker.
Really, I mean, and if you look at the amount of hours that a person who wants to take it seriously and really understand the issues, be fully prepared, like that's what I do. I mean, you know, you're making pennies on the hour.
Right.
You know, after 4 years when you figure all that out, but you're not doing it for that reason.
Yeah. It's not about the money. It's about sending a message.
Right. So, so what I would be doing is pretty much what I'm doing right now. I'd just be focusing more of my time on that. Which, you know, I'm a licensed attorney in the state of Florida. I own a couple businesses. Co-own a couple businesses.
You can go ahead and tell us about those here.
Let
people know to shop at your businesses.
Well, you know, I'm business and corporate law is what I focus on, and with my local businesses, I was with the Dunkin' Donuts franchises for Collier County for quite some time. Yeah, in 2008, we purchased there was about 4 existing Dunkin' Donuts in Collier County, and then over about an 8-year span, we expanded that from the 4 original to 20 plus operating stores, not just in Collier County, but Lee County, DeSoto County, Hendry County, South Central Florida. So we had pretty sizable network. Ended up selling all of those except for one. The one on Marco is one that we owned at the time. Okay. We no longer own that one. We do own one still in Naples.
Okay.
But on the island, we also purchased the Italian Deli and Market. So food service has been something that I've always been involved in really since I was a kid. Again, just growing up in a small business household and just being part of that. I've always had a passion for food and for that industry. Us
included. Trust me, food is a topic that comes up often on this podcast.
So I'd be focusing on that, and then of course I'm married. I've got 3 young children. They're involved in so many different things. Particularly soccer is huge for them. My daughter Tosca, she's like on 3 different organizations. She plays in all these different leagues, tournaments, travel, competitive soccer. She's really, really good. She's very talented, and so we spend a lot of time doing that, going from practice to practice, to game, and not only on Marco but in Naples and even beyond. She's got games all the way up into Tampa area for her competitive travel team. So all of that would just be taking up more time. And what's kind of interesting is you serving city council, you're serving the community of Marco, but at the same time you have to balance everything else. You have to balance your work life, you have to balance your personal life, and you don't want one to just consume everything and your focus all the time. And that's what's really hard, especially in like a social media age that we're in. Where your phone's buzzing all the time, you're getting emails, you're getting phone calls, whether it's work related or political or personal. You are always on call. And that's something that I kind of pride myself on too, is that as a city councilor, if someone calls me, I pick up the phone. You know, if I'm busy, they leave a message, I call them back. If they email me, I'll respond to their emails. They want to meet in person, I'll meet in person. I mean, I've met so many different business owners, just community members, just especially over the last few months, who are so concerned about what COVID policies were going to do to their livelihoods or to their lives in general. So having that availability, for me, is just tremendously important, because, again, you're doing it not because you want people to like you. If you're getting into politics because you want people to like you,
it's not a good idea.
I would highly advise you to give that some additional thought, because it's not. Especially at the local level, every decision you make affects somebody directly. Washington, D.C., they passed a piece of legislation. You might not know the difference for years.
Right.
And how is it going to really impact your day-to-day life? Is it going to be a monumental difference, or is it going to be a minor inconvenience or a minor improvement? You don't really know. But at the local level, in one council meeting, you can really change something in someone's life drastically. And over time, you're going to be making, hopefully, a lot more of the right decisions than the wrong decisions. And with my record, I'm very proud of my record. I think we've made a lot of really good decisions on city council. But again, that's all part of it.
Right. All right. That's a very good answer.
Keaton,
you've got a question over there.
So why did you choose to move to Marco? Like, where did you come from, and why did you choose Marco?
How did you get here?
I moved to Marco Island in 2007. Right. And I had first step foot on Marco Island in 1986.
Really?
Right. I was 3 years old.
Okay.
My parents said, come down here, to come to Florida on a vacation. Just happened to drive through, Naples, Marco Island area. Wasn't here for any long period of time, just, short little visit type situation.
Short-term rental?
No, we did not rent any property on the island.
I'm kidding. You're fine. Continue.
So we did that, and then really for a very long time, 20 plus years, never came back down to Marco Island, originally from Massachusetts.
Where in Massachusetts?
Andover area.
Okay.
Yeah.
My mom was from Cape Cod.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of different area.
At the time we came back down here in 2005. I was just about. I had just graduated undergrad and was going into law school. Came down here, really just loved the place, and it was the first time I had actually spent real time here that I could remember. And as a kid, you don't really remember a lot of that stuff. But to come down here and just, man, this place is amazing. It's a wonderful place to be, and just started coming down more often on vacations and spring break and summer break and whatever else. And then I said, you know what, this is where I want to spend the rest of my life. I love Marco Island. I want to move down here. So after I said, well, this is where I'm going to go. The plan is, once I'm done, with law school, whatever, going to be in Marco Island. Move to Marco Island full time, and never look back. It's just it's an awesome place, and that's why part of the reason why I was so compelled to want to serve Marco Island is because I love this place.
Right.
My family loves this place, my kids love this place, I love this place, and a place that you really connect with and care about, not just today, but what's Marco Island going to look like 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now? I hope in 50 years, I could still be here. I'll be 87 years old.
Yeah, it's the general age of people around.
It's certainly quite the possibility. Of course, you never know. Fingers crossed. That type of situation. But so to me, it's not about, well, what's Marco Island going to look like in 6 months. It's what's it going to look like in 50 years, and every single decision that we make impacts
the future. Yeah.
Marco seems to have that effect too, because that's exactly what happened to my parents.
Right, you come over that bridge, and it's like,
that's exactly what it was. They're like, wow, we want to live here after seeing that view.
Right.
Plus, they came down here to visit our cousins, which live down here, and they're like, yeah, we want to live down here for the rest of our lives because of just how beautiful it is here and stuff.
So, and the weather's great, the community's great, and the people are great. Everyone's here. See, what's unique about Marco is people are here who live here because they have
Want to be
chosen
here.
to be
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like Ohio or Massachusetts or wherever where you were born there and you might never
might
ever
as
leave.
well stay.
It might be the easy decision or maybe the right decision for the particular person. You stay there, or maybe you move in a neighboring town or something like that. But for Marco Island, virtually every single person here has said, I'm changing my life from wherever I am currently, and I'm moving there either to retire or to work or to raise a family or to just start over.
Yeah, few people will move down here for work specifically. It'll be work might be a part of it, but it's for I want to live here in general. Yeah,
Right. So that's what's kind of really cool about Marco Island is everyone's here because
they want to be.
They
Well,
want to be.
I mean, with
True.
few exceptions, because the only one thing that separates me from the two of you is I've been here my entire life.
Right.
I've lived in the same house
Right.
my entire life.
Right.
Do I have any reason to leave? Not really. I mean, at least for right now. Looking into the future, we don't know, but still, that's a good way to look at it.
It's pretty good.
So you said, Mark, we've been talking a lot about Marco Island this is the long game. With your political career, does that mean that let's say fingers crossed that you do win the election this upcoming November? Let's say that happens. 4 years go by. You've reached your term limit. What is the future for your political career? Does it stop there, or do you have any specific aspirations?
No, I don't have any specific aspirations. I mean, when I was thinking about running for office, 4 years ago, I could have looked at a lot of different opportunities.
Right.
And some people look at things that, hey, I'm going to run for office for the first time. I'm going to run for U.S. Congress. I'm going to run for president. And it's like, well,
for first time,
with what?
With what experience?
With what experience? With what money? How are you going to raise? I mean, you can't. You file papers, great, you're on the ballot, but what does that really mean?
Yeah.
And some people kind of do it because they want to talk about the issues, or they have a real passion for it. Whatever. People have different motivations and all that.
Of course.
And I'm not going to question some people's choices, but for me. I wanted to run for Marco Island City Council because I love Marco Island. Because I want to serve Marco Island, and because in my experience, just as a grassroots political person, watching from the outside, trying to help out different candidates and campaigns and issues and all that, not in any paid position. I mean, never really got in. I mean, I was just someone who volunteered, just offering myself to on certain things. And what I noticed is, you can spend so much money, so much time, so much effort to attempt to get things done at the state level, at the federal level, and get nowhere.
Right.
Barely move the needle. But like we were talking about earlier, if you Marco Island City Council, you can make a great change in 2 weeks. I mean, really, 2 weeks.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
I mean, if you and not just on Marco, I mean, I would encourage people, if anybody's listening who's thinking about running for office at some point, don't think about federal. Don't think about something. I mean, serve your local community because that's where you can make the most difference. That's where you'll get the most satisfaction because you'll see the work product that you put together.
Oh yeah.
And you can really benefit your community, and that's why I ran for city council. So that's been my passion is to serve Marco Island and our citizens as best I can. So in 4 years, I mean, no, I've got no particular aspirations one way or the other. I just want to do what I can and be a good public servant over the time that I'm here on Marco Island.
If there were overwhelming support for you to be going into a new position after maybe a short hiatus for you to be able to take a break to focus on your more personal and business side, would you consider?
I mean,
maybe representative or something.
I've got. I mean, I'm 37.
You've got plenty of time.
I've got young family. I've got there's so much to look forward to, and to be able to focus on all the good things that come along with that. And honestly, that's really my focus is just to serve Marco, do the best thing I can for my family, And who knows, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, I mean, how can I commit to anything one way? I would never even dream of it, because honestly, it all depends on, what are you passionate about?
Right.
4 years, I mean, is it about, there are people who want to be elected officials for their whole life.
Right.
Some have good reasons for that. Some have very poor reasons for that. You can do so, whether you're an elected office or not. If you want to be effective for your community, there are many, many ways to do that. So, when the time comes, if I can be effective for the community in a volunteer role or in anything else, that's what I want to look at. And anything else in the future, who knows? It's hard to say.
Right. All right. I think that's fair. That's very fair. Good way of looking at it. Let's see. We got some more questions.
We do have some more questions.
Yeah. All right, Keaton, do you want to go ahead and answer those? Because I don't think you can pull those up at the moment.
I think one of the good questions that we have is, what's something you wish you knew before you began your career?
Okay. That's a really good question.
Handing out advice right here.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody listen up.
It's really, that's a really, really good question. One thing that I would kind of try to impart wisdom, to others, I suppose, would simply just be, to just do everything you possibly can in the best possible manner that you can do it. Because you're never going to have that opportunity in that particular situation ever again.
Right.
Every moment that goes by is gone. Time goes by so fast. You have this second that we're having this conversation right now. We're never going to have it. It's going to be different. And if we come back here and you guys want me to come back and we'll have a conversation again, it's not going to be the same. So focus on the present. Do good things, and don't worry. Don't worry about what other people think. Focus on yourself.
That's some good advice.
You can't control what other people think. You can't control what other people say, but you can control how you react to it and how you can rise and learn from those opportunities and those circumstances. So that's what I would suggest. In my, people have asked, well, are there any votes that you've ever, wished you could have changed? Why, if you're going to focus on something like that, well, what vote would you ever regret? You can't change the past.
Yeah, you have to look forward.
But what you can do is learn from every single moment that you're participating in, whatever it is. Whether at a podcast. Your first podcast, I bet you're 100 times better today than you were.
Yes, I have to agree with that.
Now,
Wayne's World.
Now, would
studio.
you say, hey, Ryan? Do you regret that first podcast? No, because if you didn't do that first podcast, you wouldn't have gotten to number 2. And you would have gotten to number 3 in episode 4, 5, 6, whatever, and learn from that, and then be able to hone your craft. So that's something that people should try to keep in mind.
So your advice is don't look back, but learn from.
You've got to look. We all have a limited amount of time on Earth, and whatever it is that you're doing, you need to just learn from that experience and try to be a better person each day.
That's some very good advice. So, kind of on a similar token to that, who are some people who you think were your biggest inspirations in your life? If you could name 3, I'd say, who influenced you, not just in your political career, but your actual career, and just into the person that you are today.
Yeah, look, obviously, the number one and 2 people who, your parents, my parents, right? That's they raised me, they taught me a lot, they instilled values in me, and if you have that conversation, you have that who influenced you. You've got to start there.
Right.
Just about everyone is gonna start there.
Generally,
So that's where, of course, I would start. And I think that even to this day, I'm still learning from them and what they're doing in their lives, and then taking that knowledge and imparting it onto the next generation, my kids as well. So that's been obviously tremendously influential individuals in my life. But outside of, say, familial relations, influences on me. I would look I would say there's probably I could think of three just offhand. I would
All right.
say, and that we're going to be skipping huge swaths of time.
Okay.
From one to the other.
Well, if you want to go, we've got plenty of time. If you want to go into like specific time frame that this is your inspiration.
Yeah. Well, you know what we can do. We can do first millennium, second millennium. All right. So I'm gonna say in like I'll say Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I was going to say. It's like, wait a minute.
Stoic philosopher.
You're right.
Right. I would say Thomas Jefferson.
Okay. Good choice.
And I would say in the modern era, how about Ron Paul?
Ron Paul.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've got three totally different individuals.
Wide range.
Wide range of social and political norms. But all three have been very influential to me and my train of thought. In my life.
Any specific reasons why? Let's go down the line with Marcus Aurelius. Why specifically? Because that you blindsided me for a second. Because usually when you ask people that question, you get, Michael Phelps.
Right.
So why specifically Marcus Aurelius to start off?
Have you read the Meditations?
I have not actually.
Okay.
I'm not familiar. When it comes to emperors, I'm not 100%.
Well,
we didn't study Rome.
Let's get a few minutes ago.
I know Caesar.
About, what advice would you give to somebody? How about read
the Meditations?
Read Meditations.
Okay, I'll do that when I get home. We'll put a link in the description.
Yeah. Well, make sure you find I think a modern translation,
English
is
translation,
very helpful because there's some old English translations with
and probably
the vowels
Roman.
and the thys and the ye's and all that.
Okay.
But you can find
New
some
King
really
James.
cool translations. Modern approach, but still that maintain the heart of what was originally written at the time, which was never intended for publication. I mean, that was a personal journal that was found after his death and then published, which is kind of cool. I wonder he would see it that way. I doubt it. I doubt it, but you never know. The Robin Hard translation is very, very good. Gregory Hayes is another really good modern translation. So everybody out there, do yourself a favor and pick one of those up. But just the overall philosophy of life that he had and his approach to issues, and then someone who basically oversaw an entire empire, but at the same time never lost his humble approach and understanding of why he continually reminded himself in these journal entries that when he dies, there's not. Who do you all you are is a memory. You're one day emperor, the next day ash. I mean that's kind of how he approached things, and that that time just consistently flows by, and you've got to be able to just focus on the present moment. And it was someone who in his reign met a number of daunting challenges.
Of
I mean,
course.
you had a plague, you had wars, you had, you name it. I mean, the guy was probably one of the most unlucky emperors, in the whole history of Rome. But at the same time, he was considered the last good emperor. Pax Romana. I mean, it was he was the last good emperor in that time frame, and just his approach and his Stoic philosophy. I personally really value and try to emulate in some ways. So that's been tremendously influential for me over time, and so that's why I would name him.
So
the next one,
Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah. Yes.
Because now
that's closer to our time.
Yeah. You caught me a little bit off guard with Marcus Aurelius because
Good. That was
one
the
issue.
intent.
One issue with the modern school system is the only person in Rome I ever heard about would be the following: Jesus Christ and Julius Caesar. So that's about it.
Yeah. And right. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So Thomas Jefferson. I'm going to do all my research on Marcus Aurelius later tonight, and while
next time I come back, we can talk.
We'll get straight into philosophy when we have you as our reoccurring guest. If you make some landmark decision that we all don't agree with, we're going to bring you on and have you explain yourself, and then we'll talk philosophy. All right, so Thomas Jefferson.
Sure. I mean, how can you not pick Thomas Jefferson if you have any interest in politics and U.S. history and just just the causes of freedom and obviously individually is someone perfect? Absolutely. I mean, Marcus Aurelius isn't perfect. I'm not perfect. Thomas Jefferson isn't perfect. Nobody's perfect. Yeah. So we can pick apart people all we want, but what does that really accomplish at the end of the day? It's the vision and the principles that even if they were unable to live up to them entirely, they had the courage to express them and to fight for them and to just inspire generations of people hundreds and hundreds of years now into the future who have wanted to follow through with that and see it writing the Declaration of Independence, writing the Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom, in spite of, and then working to outlaw slavery in the Northwest Territory, in the Northwest Ordinances. And again, someone who, obviously struggled with that on a personal level, whether as a product of the times or however you want to put it. But the fact is, when someone makes a statement that all men are created equal, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You can just a guy who said, I've sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility over every form of tyranny over the mind of man. I mean, those are just truly an embodiment of the American mind.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I can see that absolutely.
And again, does everybody live up to? I mean, no. I mean, there are people today who say some really wonderful things and have it in their heart to see it through, but. We're all
great
flawed.
Speakers don't always mean great people, but
we're just everybody's
everybody's
flawed, in their own way. But we can learn from what they tried to get across,
right?
Even if they couldn't quite do it themselves. But we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for people like Jefferson and Washington and and Hamilton. And
That's very true.
And what's really interesting is they were your age. I mean, you guys are not 18, 20?
17, 18.
Okay.
So they were just a little bit older.
Well, I mean, but you had some of the greatest American minds who were in their late teens and early 20s when they fought the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
Or
young.
were part of that time. And whether or not they actually picked up a musket and shot at a redcoat, is another matter. But they were part of that generation, and so that's what's kind of cool. Like as younger people, I mean, now we think, well, you really can't do anything until you're in your 30s or 40s, or whatever. Or, you look out there and you see people running for office or doing this or proposing something or starting a business, and they're older, 30s, 40s, 50s. You look at elected officials and they're 50, 60, 70, 80 years old.
Yeah.
That was not the case.
Where is
200 plus years ago.
I think I think it's one of the Carolinas. I'm not totally certain. I forget his name, but we have the youngest ever congressman running this year. He just I think he just turned. What is the cutoff age for Congress? Is it minimum age is 25?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was 24. He just turned 25 during the election cycle.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Which makes him, if he wins, will make him the youngest, apart from AOC, who is currently the youngest.
Right. So I mean, young people can do amazing things. Now we we think, hey, when you're 18, you're barely out of your parents' house, or you're barely out of high school, or whatever. I mean,
which is
people at 18
much more of an issue now, too.
Back then were changing the world.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, because I mean now also, especially with the pandemic, you see a lot more of the older Gen Z crowd are still living with their parents. So I feel like that's part of the reason why people see it that way, which is an unfortunate thing. So Thomas Jefferson, another good choice.
Yeah.
I take it that the literature aspect of it is kind of important to you because you said the meditations, and then of course Thomas Jefferson was a poet as well as writing the Declaration. So
Jefferson wrote a lot of correspondence to his contemporaries. He wrote, obviously either helped write, wrote himself, or inspired countless pieces of legislation and statements and everything else. Again, a guy who I've had tremendous pleasure and enjoyment reading either about him or his writings directly.
All right, so the third, Ron Paul.
Yes. So now we're into 21st century,
the
right?
modern age.
Right.
Yeah.
The reason why I mentioned him, and again, I think we're looking at number one, a philosophical base, right? Going back to Aurelius, you're looking at a principled political style. Would say Jefferson, and then you look at how is that translated into modern age, and for me, after 2007, 2008, when Ron Paul ran for president, that was really kind of ignited my passion again in politics. Because I'd kind of after a while, you just either you get tired of politics or politics gets tired of you. And in that case,
I'm starting to get tired.
Just tired of
this year.
Things that were going on, and just nothing ever really sat right with some of the things, and he kind of was just a totally different voice, really, from what you would normally hear, and just a lot of what he said, kind of hearkening back to some of the language of the founders, respecting individual rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, following the Constitution all the time. I mean, as an elected official, that's you swear an oath to the Constitution.
Of course.
That's, and so whatever you think is this is a great idea, this is a great program, this is a great piece of legislation. Well, all the way back, is it constitutional?
Yeah.
You've got to meet that test. So that was kind of an inspiration for me, about 12 years ago now.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Well, three very good answers, and I still need to go read the meditations when we're done with this.
No, absolutely.
But
yes.
Let's see. We've got about 15 minutes left. Keaton, we got any more stuff that we need to cover?
I think, yeah. I would
Okay,
say
enlighten us.
Most importantly, some may say, why should our listeners vote for you?
Specifically, I feel like we kind of covered that in the beginning, but maybe remind people.
An ending statement.
Yeah. Well, look. Here's the thing.
Here's the deal.
You want
Sorry.
Someone who's running for office. What's their track record?
Yeah.
I mean, look, like I mentioned earlier, you can say a lot of different things, make a lot of really amazing promises, but can you get it done? And I think that's what separates me from a lot of people who are running today is I've made the pledges, I've followed through on the pledges, and I got it done.
Yeah.
So that's something that, for our voters, I mean, I said I was going to put more money in our citizens' pockets, keep our taxes down. We've lowered the property tax rate 4 years in a row. Never been done before, at rollback on Marco Island in our history. And I highly doubt, I would challenge anyone actually to go find something even remotely close in Southwest Florida, or maybe even the state of Florida. It's, that's a hard thing to accomplish. We've been able to do it. We cut the communications tax by 60%, which was one of my proposals. Working to protect our environment by trying to improve our water quality. Put more money towards that priority, which we've really done over the last couple years. We've prioritized more money towards water quality than any council in Marco Island's history. The borrowing owl incentive grant program, which is very, very unique. Nothing had never been done before in the state of Florida. How we accomplished it here on Marco. That's an innovative approach to protecting our endangered and threatened species by getting people to voluntarily want to do the right thing. Bring a burrowing owl onto your property, have a burrow dug, and hopefully one will nest there.
Oh,
and then to pay for it with the fines that are collected from people who are doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You can always talk about, well, we're going to fine this, we're going to punish that, we're going to have these really strong ordinances, and there's a time and a place for all of that. But also you want to see that people do the right thing. You don't want to just say don't do the wrong thing. You want to see people step up and do the right thing, and that was an example of that. So for someone who's invested in the community long term, husband, father, small business owner, attorney, and community leader. So I've been on Marco. I've served Marco. I've always I've answered calls. I've met citizens. Really any time whenever they've needed it, I've gone out of my way as best I can to respond to them, and to be there and to be accountable for decisions and help them in ways if they needed assistance with something. So it's about serving the community, and I'm committed to Marco Island and our shared future as a community. So I think people have heard that message. They've been very, very strongly supporting me in this race. They've helped me in just a number of ways, and I think we're going to have a very successful November 3rd. But we're not going to stop between. We're not taking anything for granted. We're going full on from now until November 3rd, and then like I promised in 2016, it wasn't just a campaign promise that I was going to be out there and active in the community. It was a 4-year commitment, and when I'm reelected
less of a
again,
campaign
it's
promise,
going to be another
campaign
4-year
commitment.
Yeah.
There you go.
And, you can't just say, hey, I'm going to be out there and I'm going to show up for this event because it happens to be in the campaign season, and then you're never there for the next 4 years. What I've done, if you're around Marco Island at all, you've seen me, my wife, and my kids at just about everything that really makes our island such an awesome place to live. And that's something that I'm going to continue to do over the next 4 years.
Yeah, which there's 2 things I want to say about that. Your comments about why people should vote for you actually harkens back for me, to the election between Aaron Burr and Thomas Jefferson, because when Hamilton was asked who he endorses, he said even though he didn't agree with everything Thomas Jefferson said, at least he had ideals, and at least he was going to get stuff done, when Aaron Burr had nothing that he was actually fighting for. So I thought that was interesting. But also, dang, it actually just slipped my mind. What was the last thing you said?
Just about being part of the community and being at events and being invested in Marco Island.
Burrowing owls, tortoises.
It didn't have anything to do with the specifics. I'm having a brain fart right now. Maybe it'll come to me. But actually, burrowing owls and tortoises is a good topic. You've said that you've done a lot to try and help the local wildlife.
Sure.
Yeah. Dang, I'm just off it right now. I don't know what I was going to ask about that.
All right. No, one thing that we did focus on, the past 4 years, we passed an updated endangered species ordinance on the island, which expanded the protection zone around the burrowing owls and gopher tortoises. Again, it's something that you have to continue to monitor, because there's always room for improvement. And once, when you see a piece of legislation and it looks great, it sounds great, everybody thinks it's going to be great, but then you put it into practice, and is it achieving its goals? So if it is achieving its goals, great. Maybe you can find a way to tweak it and improve it. If it's not achieving the goals, then you've got to find a way to make it better. So we've just got to continue to kind of pay attention to things like that, and just not pass something and then forget about it, because that doesn't serve anybody's interest.
That's a good point.
That's very true.
That's a good point. So let's see. We got a couple other things.
Sure. We got number 13, Ryan.
Number 13?
Number 13.
Oh, yeah. So, is there anything that you think that you need to set the record straight on, be it about you or be it about Marco Island as a whole? Anything that maybe someone might get wrong, or an assumption that people might make, something that you want to just, the buck stops here. It's like, what's the deal?
Well, honestly, when you're in the public eye, when you're an elected official, even in a minor office like city council, there are individuals who either purposely attempt to mislead, or
Facebook can be a scary place.
Right, Facebook, social media, whatever. It's one thing to kind of sit behind a keyboard and say whatever you want about somebody or anything like that. But honestly, I really don't focus on any of that at all. It's just it's really not.
It's not something that really was worth your time. Makes sense.
Well, you know what? I mean, the thing is, what I've always said to anybody, to any citizen, hey, if you want to talk to me, give me a call.
Yeah.
That's why I'm available. That's why I make myself available to the citizens, either via email or phone or in person. If you want to talk about an issue, if you want to find out, what happened in a council meeting, or what was the reason for this vote or that vote, give me a call. Shoot me an email. It's all. Because believe me, I love to have the conversations and to speak to our citizens directly or over the computer or whatever. And so my focus is on just moving forward and doing the right thing for the community. Not focusing on a tiny minority who might have who knows. I mean, there's so much stuff out there that not just about anybody who's running or anybody who's doing whatever. If that's what your focus is on, is trying to obsessively look at what someone's posting on. I mean, and there are people who think that that's how you run a successful campaign. It's not. It's not. You've got to be out there. You've got to. You've got to be open with the citizens. And honestly, that's why I've had the support and the success that I have had on Morco Island, is because I've always put myself in that situation where I've been open, I've been transparent, I've done events. I do meet and greets, and my last campaign.
You've done a podcast.
I mean, a podcast. I mean, the meet and greets that I've put on in the last campaign. I mean, nobody did anything at that level.
People were coming out to yours who were trying to
learn about other people.
Because you had other candidates coming out to those as well.
True. I mean, people will come out and they say, you're the only one that I know that's running. I know there must be other people, but I don't hear from them. I don't see them. I don't know who they are. I don't know what their positions are. And that's why I've always kind of taken that route, because again, why are you doing this thing? Why are you running for office? Why do you want to serve the community? And if you've got a really bizarre reason for it, or your heart's not into it all the way, or you're trying to achieve some type of
monetary goal.
Certainly not monetary goal, but to achieve some type of relevance, or to satisfy an ego. Trust me, you're in the wrong.
You're in the wrong business, pal.
You've got to really
politics ain't for you.
You've got to just be focused on moving forward, and be future focused, and be responsive to the citizens, and that's what I'm all about.
I think that's great. With actually meeting someone, because it's very different if you care about someone. But once you meet someone, you actually get to understand them and know them more.
Right. Well, I mean, we have such a hypercharged political climate. Not just on
in
Marco,
this political climate,
but everywhere. I mean, everywhere, world over.
And it seems like it's just getting worse. Every 4 years, it feels like there's more toxicity in the whole thing, where we try and avoid it plague sometimes.
And people on Morco Island reject that type of that type of political approach. They really, really do. That's why, when I ran in 2016, I ran a positive issue focused campaign. I got the most votes in Morco Island history.
Really?
Yeah. And
I did not know that. Congratulations on that.
It wasn't necessarily just. It was the community would just said, hey, look, this is a vision that we all can get behind.
Yeah.
Let's focus on the issues. Let's be positive. Let's try to move the community forward.
So in your opinion, it's not just about you. It's also about just what you stand for, and Morco Island can get behind that. It has to be about the issues and the principles. Right.
Because again, if you're running for something, trying to serve the community, and it's because of something that you want as an individual, you're already starting off in the wrong foot, and you really shouldn't be running for office.
It's true. It's very true.
That's why when I ran, I said, hey, look, these are my principles: fiscal conservatism, limited government, constitutional, protection of individual rights, protect property rights, keep our taxes down, and so it's easy when you're up there, when you're looking at an issue, even if it's like something brand new that's come in, you say, well, what are my principles? My principles are X, Y, or Z, and how do those principles apply in this situation?
Right.
So you're not just jumping from one thing, saying that you're going to cut taxes, and then you see something that you like, so then you raise tax. No, it doesn't work like that. But that's how people
stick
run,
to your guns.
and then they get voted out of office or whatever, or they keep getting in there and they never really fulfill what the promises that they've made to the citizens. So
it just
for me,
sounds like
it's always been it's a simple formula. Tell the citizens what you're about, what you truly believe, what your principles are, and then regardless of the issue, they know that you're voting yes or no because of the underlying principles, and you can go from those principles and work your way up to the borrowing owl, or the sidewalks, or
parking,
or parking, or short-term rentals. I mean, you start. Here's your base principles. How do you? So if you just are looking at the issue, the short-term rentals, parking, sidewalks, taxes, whatever, and you're looking in, and you have no base, you have no foundation. What are you really making your votes on? I mean, you're just kind of jumping around, and you're never really have any solid footing, and so people can't rely on you to vote one way or the other because it's all going to be very subjective. You've got to look at it.
People know what you're about.
They know what I'm about, and you know what, and that's why I think people appreciate how I voted on certain things, because even if they've disagreed on one or two issues, they know, well, I can see why he voted.
You're not going to flip flop, as many people would say.
Exactly. It's like, hey, this is why, and if you want to talk about it and have a conversation of why maybe you think that the vote should have gone differently, then let's have that conversation. But no one has ever come up to me and said, I have no idea why he voted that way. Or it'd be like, or if they weren't familiar with who I am or what I'm about, then it's like, well, this is what I'm about. So that's how I got from there to here. And people truly appreciate that. And again, you can have reasonable disagreements on issues. Again, something that is generally missing in politics today. Reasonable disagreement on issues, or trying to say, hey, you know what, I really would like this, the vote to be yes. If someone says I really like the vote to be no, like, well, what can we do to find a way to get to the common ground where neither of us are sacrificing our principles, but maybe there's something there that we can work out and that'll benefit the community as a whole. And that's what I've been about on city council. And you look at the votes on city council over the last 4 years. Overwhelming majority of the votes have been 5-2, 6-1, 7-0. There's been of course you're going to have 4-3 split votes every now and then. That's politics. That's life. But you try to find the common ground to bring more people aboard, and I think I've been pretty successful at doing that.
All right. Great. Well, we are just about out of time. Actually, we're going to go a little bit over. But are there any final things that you want to tell anyone listening, or just us in general?
Sure. Well, first off, thank you guys for inviting me.
Absolutely.
No problem.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for
we've been excited for this ever since I asked you at your kickoff event. So
right. No, it's really cool. I love to see you guys like you kind of do stuff like this. It's really interesting, and to have even just any interest at all in the local goings on is important. So I think this is really cool, and I appreciate it. And I'd love to come back at some point in the future.
Of course, we would love to have you.
But
we'll invite you back.
To the voters, to anybody listening, we've got a very, very important election. Everybody says this is always the most important election of our lifetime. Every 2 years, it's always the most important election of our lifetime.
Yeah, it sure seems like it, doesn't it?
But here we are. We've got 4 seats up for election. You've got 5 candidates. So I know the citizens of Marco Island are doing their research. I know that they're learning about the candidates. We just had a candidate forum the other night. I'd encourage you to check that out if you didn't see it live. You can actually go to my website, jaredgrifoni.com, and not only will you find a link to all my answers in that forum. I clipped all the videos out. People can look at them on just some of the important issues we talked about today, but many others. But also, look at my record. You have all these issues, all the pledges, things that I've done over the last 4 years that I think have been great for Marco Island and have moved the city in the right direction. So I asked for their vote and support once again, for another 4 years, for my final 4 years on Marco Island City Council. JaredGrifoni.com once again, and if you ever have any questions, whether it's about electoral issues or city council issues later on, hopefully getting reelected on November 3rd, reach out to me, email me, call me, let's set up a meeting, let's have a conversation. Let's continue to move the island in the right direction, keep our taxes down, and be responsive to our citizens' needs and meet their priorities as best we can.
All right. Well, guys,
cool.
Today, the day that this is uploading, is October 19th, so that means early voting has started today, and you have until, when is the early voting cutoff, Jared?
Yep, early voting starts on October 19th at 9 a.m.
9 a.m.
And it's from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day until and including October 31st, Halloween. And then there'll be no more early voting on the Sunday or the Monday, which would be November 1st and 2nd, and then Election Day is November 3rd, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at your local precinct. If you're on Marco during early voting, the only place you can vote is the Marco Island Library. If you're on Marco, you want to vote on Marco, you go to the Marco Island Library. There are other early voting sites in Collier County, but if you're on Marco, clearly the most convenient right here on Marco Island is Marco Island Library, regardless of your precinct. And then on Election Day, November 3rd, you have to vote specifically at your precinct, which, depending on where you're at on the island, is either the United Church on Barfield, the Lutheran Church on Collier, or the Presbyterian Church on Bald Eagle.
Right. All right. So, guys, make sure you get out there and vote, whoever it be for. But that being said, make sure you guys follow us on our social medias. Jared, do you have any social medias or other places that people can find you to keep up to date, like your Facebook page?
Right. If you go to JaredGrifoni.com, there's links there to my Facebook and Twitter, but Facebook.com/JaredGrifoni or on Twitter @JaredGrifoni.
Yeah. And then for us, at the Pickle Jar Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We don't really use Twitter as much, but Facebook and Instagram is our main place. Make sure you listen on Spotify, iTunes, and here on YouTube. Well, if you're watching here on YouTube, if you're listening wherever you are. So, that being said, I have been Ryan Sullivan.
I've been Keaton Ashby.
And you can go ahead and say...
Jared Grifoni.
All right. Thank you
Thanks,
guys
everybody.
so much for listening.